on the 15th, so we see the connection between the 1st and the 10th because of the two people that will be imprisoned and killed on each of those days. Now we go to Sukkot, the feast of Sukkot. And it says, on the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a set apart convocation. You shall do no customary work, and you shall keep a feast to Yahweh 7 days. So we see here that this is the reflection of the feast of Matzot. Just like Mashiach died, and then they celebrated Matzot for 7 days. In this case, we just saw how the two witnesses will die on Yom Kippur, and then 5 days later, Sukkot will happen, which is 7 days. So Matzot is a mirror of Sukkot. In this case, Sukkot represents the second Exodus, when the 144,000 will have to act and flee wherever they may be at regularly, and be wherever they go during the feast, to be harvested at the end of it during Shemini Atzeret. So on the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have a set apart convocation. You shall do no customary work, which is interesting because if you keep the feast, well, some people, even if they were able to find the true calendar and keep the feast, they would at least save themselves from some trouble, because, for instance, they would not work, so they won't find them at work, as we see, for instance, that it says that two will be at work, one will be taken, and one will be left. So you shall do no customary work, and you shall keep a feast to Yahweh 7 days. You shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, as a sweet aroma to Yahweh. The whole thing connected with the fire that would come right after the two witnesses die. The 7th trumpet is blown, and after the harvest, and even during it, fire will start to affect the people more and more through the 7 last plagues, meaning, well, the heat of the sun and fire of guns, for instance. So you shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, as a sweet aroma to Yahweh. 13 young bulls. 13. This is interesting because the number 13 represents the one, because Yahweh Echad. Yahweh is one. In Hebrew, Echad, which is one, is formed by 3 letters, Aleph, Chet, and Dalet. When we add the numerical values of those letters, we get the number 13. So that shows that by Sukkot, the first and last will be one. And Zechariah 14:9, which we read last week, will be fulfilled. His name will be one, Yahweh will be one, and his name will be one. And also Ezekiel 37 will be fulfilled when the branch of Yehudah will be one with the branch of Yahusef. So, and meaning, well, you would have to read it. I think we're going to read it at some point here because it is very important and interesting chapter. So, like I was saying, 13 young bulls. The first and last will be one by this moment after the death of the two witnesses, because when the last resurrects 3.5 days later, he will become one with Mashiach the first. Also, is as Mashiach finally being gathered to the 12 tribes and to the 12 disciples, therefore 13 of them. 13 young bulls, 2 rams, because by that time Yahuhanan and Eliyahu will be one, meaning both times, obviously not taking in account the first in which he was taken alive, but as Yahuhanan when he had to die, and now the witness like Eliyahu when he will have to die, they will be one. So 2 rams and 14 lambs in the first year. 14 as in the 12 disciples and the 2 manifestations, first and last. But also the number 14 is the numerical value of David. Dalit Vav Dalit, which is 4, 6, and 4, which makes the number 14. So that shows that the kingdom of David would have been already established through all the sacrifices. And 14 lambs in their first year. 14 because by this time the first and second coming would have happened already, and therefore 7 and 7, 14. This a week, the week of Daniel, for instance, which there was also something similar that happened when Mashiach came. Meaning, when Mashiach came, he came to fulfill the first 69 weeks of Daniel. And a week has 7 days. So, and his ministry was 3.5 years. So, there were 3.5 years that were left as the emptiness or the night when Mashiach as the light left this world. So 14 lambs in the first year, as in first and last, 7 and 7, becoming David, the branch and the root of David, becoming one. 14, the kingdom of Yahweh being established, first and last in the 12 disciples, 12 tribes. And also if we add, 13 to 14, we have 27, plus the 2 rams, 29. We could see what words have that numerical value, just real quick, not to go through other words. The 29 would be formed through the kaf and the tet, the 2 letters kaf and tet, which is the hen, the palm of the hen, and the snake. So the punishment of the snake would come at that moment. Also the hen harvesting and putting the chosen few in the basket. And since it is talking about the flour mixed, it is a confirmation of the harvest. The hand of Yahweh, which is the last, gathering the chosen few as the wheat to make the fine flour and put it in the basket, represented by the letter tet. So, continuing, they shall be without blemish. Their grain offering shall be, I meant the fine flour coming right after. Their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, which are the 144 that will be harvested. They will flee during the second Exodus, but harvested days later. Their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for each of the 13 bulls. Pretty much the same interpretation, but you multiply by the numbers and the meanings of those numbers that I mentioned. 2/10 for each of those 2 rams, and 1/10 for each of the 14 lambs. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. There was a drink offering given on Sukkot, and it's talking about how you have to do, they had to do all of these things besides everything that was said to them in other parts of Scripture, for instance. And it is interesting, Sukkot is connected with water, as Mashiach saying, I am the water of life, like the chosen few going in the second Exodus and getting water from the rock, which is Mashiach, the water of life, and the cornerstone. So on the second day, present 12 young bulls. So from now we're going to start seeing how the numbers are going to start going down. The 13 was for the first day of Sukkot, 13 bulls for the first day. So now 12 for the second, 11 for the third, 10 for the fourth, etc., etc., until we fulfill the 7 days of Sukkot. And that has to do with the fact that the many, after the 2 witnesses die, the many will realize that they made a big mistake, but it will be too late. Some of them may flee, but they will die in that fleeing, but most will remain on, like, wherever they are in their houses, many of them expecting the rapture, and the beast will come find them and will force people to get the mark. Those who realize they made a mistake will not receive the mark, so they will be taken to die. And it is obvious that the more days go by, less and less people will be left to die. So sadly, like we see in Hosea 5:7, in 30 days time, the many that are believers but will not accept the true doctrine and the two witnesses on time, once the two witnesses die, the many will have to die through what the beast will do in those 30 days, which will start on Sukkot. So these sacrifices won't go for 30 days, but those 30 days are represented by those 7 and all the sacrifices that are given. And the fact that the number was bigger at the beginning and starts growing, smaller by the end, is to show that the many will start dying during that time when the Great Tribulation will start. So, on the second day, present 12 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in the first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offering for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offering. On the third day, present 11 bulls. And look how then it says 2 rams, 14 lambs. So the same rams, the same lambs, but fewer bulls. Like I said, the cow or the heifer represents the many and is the wife of the bull. So since the bulls are going down and down, that's to show that the cows are dying. Basically, the many. So as if the bull was gathering each of those sacrifices that are being made on each of those days. But since more and more sacrifices happen, there are less and less of those that will be sacrificed, meaning killed during the harvest, as the grapes of Revelation 14. So on the third day, present 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 lambs in the first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, his grain offering, and his drink offering. So we see that he starts to repeat each thing to show how perfect it is, but also only one thing changes, which are the number of the bulls, which are connected with the heifer, which is connected to the many that will have to die during the 30 days that will start during the Sukkot. So on the fourth day, present 10 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in the first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offering for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 kid of the goats as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. On the 5th day, present 9 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in the first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. Maybe some people will say that I don't need to read everything and I should just jump ahead. However, I don't believe that that is good when it comes to scripture, so that's why I like to make sure I read the whole thing, even if there are repetitions. And we're not even seeing the Hebrew. So on the 6th day, present 8 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering, besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering, and its drink offering. Now we come to the 7th day, which is the last day of Sukkot. On the 7th day, present 7 bulls. So that means that by the 7th day represents completion. So that's why the 13 bulls that we started with became now 7, to represent that the harvest is completed because of the 7th day of Sukkot. Like I said, he's not going to mention all the 30 days of the many, but the 7 represents the harvest because the chosen few will be harvested by the next day. So the 7th day represents everything, the whole thing, because 7 represents completion. So on the 7th day, present 7 bulls, 7 and 7, to show completeness. So 2 rams and 14 lambs in their first year without blemish. And everything that I said about the 7 earlier also connects here with these bulls, and the fact that our 7 bulls Also connects with the 7 lambs that were given previously, showing how the bull is one with the lamb at the end to make 14. So 14 lambs in their first year without blemish, and their grain offering and their drink offerings for the bulls, for the rams and for the lambs by their number according to the ordinance. Also 1 goat as a sin offering besides the regular burnt offering, its grain offering and its drink offering.